Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to How to Get Hired. I am Bill, the company's expert. Thank you for joining me today. This is the live stream where we talk about how to get hired. Pretty simple. So if you are looking for a job right now, or you are between jobs right now, or you are looking to change jobs or change careers, or you are gainfully employed right now, but you want to climb the ladder, you want to further your career, and you're wondering how people go about doing that, this is the place to be. Hopefully my system is working correctly. My screen does not look like it usually does, put it that way, so hopefully people can see me. Let's just check. I'm going to check my live feed, something that you do very, very often. Professionals do this all the time, by the way. Yes. Okay, perfect. So it does show, but my screen looks a bit weird. Anyway, thank you for joining me. So I wanted to start off today's live stream while we're waiting for the questions to come in by talking about where the good jobs are, okay? This is something that I feel that a lot more people should be aware of, because I get a lot of comments and questions on this channel for people that are struggling with this. And it's understandable. We all have to start out somewhere, but I'm surprised this isn't talked about more than it actually is. Hopefully you guys can see me okay. There's like a real lag with my monitor. So I don't know what's going on, but hopefully everybody can see me okay. I see that Mickey9 is here. Mickey9 says, "Hi Bill, nice to see you again." Yes, we can see you. Awesome. Right on. Thanks, Mickey9. And Min. Hello, nice to meet you, sir. Yeah, right on. Okay, so let's talk about this for a second. Now, if you have a car, or you use public transportation, or whatever you do, or whatever city you're in, whatever region you're in, if you do live in a city or a town and you travel around your city, okay, you drive around it or you take public transport, and you look at the businesses in your city, okay, you will probably get a distorted view of the economy, because what do you normally see when you drive around the city? You see retail stores, right? You see malls, you see restaurants, things like this. So one could be forgiven for thinking that there are a lot of those types of businesses, and they are the principal types of businesses, and they do the majority of business in the city that you're in, okay? So when you're just starting out, maybe you come out of high school or something and you're looking for a job, you think like, okay, where would I work? Well, I'd probably work in a restaurant or a retail store, because that's what I see, right? And what I'm here to tell you is that in the vast majority of cases, if you see what I'm saying, the vast majority of cities, usually what you see is not what's there, okay? If you drive around a typical city, you will find some type of industrial park, okay? There'll be a region of the city that's kind of almost fenced off in a way. It's hidden from the public view because it contains a lot of the businesses that are not as sexy, shall we say. Like they deal with transportation, they deal with supply chain, they deal with the processing of the natural resources in the area. So if you live in an area where there's a lot of mining or forestry or fisheries or oil and gas, or, like these kinds of industries, right? Usually that's hidden away. You don't really see it right up in your face when you're driving around the city. So you tend to forget that it's there. And in reality, there's two things. Number one, those are the industries or the businesses that employ a huge amount of people, okay? Usually more so than the consumer type businesses that you see, like malls and restaurants. But also, usually, they are a lot richer. There's a lot more money flowing through those types of businesses than there are the consumer businesses that you see. It's sort of like a facade, right? So why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this because if we're looking at employment opportunities, that's where a lot of people will want to look. And if you don't really look for it, go out of your way and try and remember that stuff exists and seek it out, you might not realize that it even exists because you don't really see it. It's not very visible. Okay. So obviously I'm talking to people that could be anywhere in the world. So, the exact details are going to vary depending on where you live, what country you're in, and what's the local economy consisting of. But that's usually the case. Usually, if you know basic economics, you know that a city exists in that specific place for a reason. It's not just that they put people there randomly. It's that there's an advantage of being there specifically. Usually it has to do with some kind of nearby resource, right? And that could be man-made, right? Like Silicon Valley in the United States. The reason that you go to Southern California is not because of the natural resources, but they have a lot of the financiers there, like the companies that invest in startups. They have Stanford University. They have a whole ecosystem geared around tech and startups. So you go there. That's a man-made economy. But other places, like where I am in Canada, a lot of it is based around resources. So if there's a lot of agriculture in the area, or mining, or oil and gas, that's the reason why people are there. And that's where the wealth of that region comes from. So all the other businesses like restaurants and accountants and, legal services and things like this, they're all just there to serve the exploitation of natural resources, right? So my point is that you could live in a city like that your whole life and not realize that the reason why it's there is because of this one industry, and you've never even seen that industry and you're not even aware of it. But really, they're employing tons of people behind the scenes, usually a huge chunk of the city's population, but you might not even see any of that. So that's the first thing that people should be aware of. And those types of businesses usually have a lot of money, a lot more so than restaurants and law firms and things like this that kind of sit on top of that from an economic sense. Okay. Kevin is here. Hello to Kevin. Thanks, Kevin. Kevin says, looks good. Okay, good. My monitor still kind of got like a 2 or 3 second delay on it, so it's kind of weird. Yes, you're absolutely right, Mickey9. The chat messages are not working for some reason. So, oh well, we're just gonna press on ahead. I also don't see the number of people attending the stream, but that's fine. I can see you guys are here, so that's great. Thank you for being here. And yes, oh, by the way, like it says on my screen, I do have a second YouTube channel, The Company's Expert 2. So if you like this channel, go there and subscribe to that. I'm nearly at 5,000 subscribers on the second channel. So it would be cool if we could push it over that hurdle. That would be really nice. Anyway. Okay, so that's kind of the first thing. Don't just think of the businesses that you see as you drive around your city, because a lot of the employment, a lot of the money that's being made in the business that's being conducted, and the opportunities are behind the scenes. They're not visible. This is where I come from. I come from a business to business background, not business to consumer. So it's more industrial type stuff. And, instead of like a restaurant where you're doing transactions that are like what, equivalent of about $50, how much does a meal cost for a family or whatever? Around $50. Industrial businesses, they're doing, every transaction they do is like $5,000, $50,000, things like that. So the amount of money flowing through those businesses is huge. So therefore, if they want to hire someone, number one, they can usually pay them well if they want to. If they feel it needs it, they have the money to pay, as opposed to maybe some restaurants that might really not, they're trying to do everything and, for as cheaply as possible. Yeah, okay, the other thing is that a big thing that's not on the radar for a lot of people is the fact that you have big organizations, big companies, and you have small companies, right? And everybody always thinks of the big companies because they're advertised. They go out of their way to spend millions of dollars on branding and promotion so you know their logo and you know what they do. But the small businesses aren't really doing that. And you can find this out quite easily if you go to Google or anything else. You could maybe do it on ChatGPT and just find out in the city that you're currently living, of the people that have jobs, are they working in big business or are they working in small business, right? Now, it's going to vary depending on where you live in the world, but you'll be surprised how big small business is. Where I am in Canada, or this region of Canada, it's something like 85% of people that have jobs work in small businesses. And in the United States, depending on which region you are, it varies between about that, 85% being in small business, to about 50%, around 50-50, depending where you are. So the thing is, don't just pay attention to the big business. There's huge opportunities in small business. They don't have the resource to promote themselves and their jobs far and wide like the big business does. So if you're not tuned into that, you're not looking in the places where, or pursuing opportunities that may be there, you're missing out on a huge chunk of the available opportunities, right? So we're going to talk about how you can look for those. Okay, so and I've talked about these concepts extensively before. Now, there's a different perspective for small businesses and big businesses. If you're a large enterprise and you're trying to hire, that's usually where you go through recruiters. You either hire an outside HR company to do your recruitment and selection for you, to find candidates and promote jobs, right? Or you have your own department in-house that's doing it. So the HR department themselves is, posting jobs on job boards and things like this, right? And then when you apply for those, it goes through ATS systems and recruiters and all that, right? Small businesses, it varies. A lot of the time, you don't get them using recruiters. Sometimes you do. They'll hire like a third-party recruiter to do it, but a lot of times they don't. And I know what I'm talking about because I've done both when I was in my corporate career. We hired our outside recruiting firms that would do hiring for you, that were supposedly hiring experts. And we also did stuff directly ourselves because it doesn't take a degree in rocket surgery to be able to throw together a job description and post it on a place like Indeed. It's actually extremely simple. One would wonder why you need someone to do that for you. And the only real answer is simply because you don't have the time. That's usually how a lot of small businesses think. The only reason they would hire a recruiter a lot of times is because they don't have the time. They're a manager, they've got their own work to do, and they don't have time to sift through resumes and deal with posting jobs and all this kind of stuff. So, and I've asked around. I mean, I have my own experiences with that, but I've also asked around with other managers and said, what do you think of hiring recruiters? What's your experience been? Have you had good experiences? Do you do it, or do you prefer to do it yourself? And what I found, it was roughly 50-50. Half of the managers across a few different companies said, no, I hire recruiters. I mean, they don't do anything that I couldn't do myself, but I just don't have the time to micromanage that kind of stuff. Other people have said, no, I don't hire recruiters because we've had crappy experiences with them. They just want to give you a candidate that ticks all the boxes that you've given them, and they really don't care whether that client works out. Even some of their guarantees where they say, we guarantee that the person we select will work out or your money back, those kinds of promises, they don't even honor those. They've got at the point where they've selected someone and you've accepted them, they've got their money and they're gone, so they don't really care what happens after that. So I've seen all kinds, but it's not a slam dunk that they go through recruiters. A lot of people do it themselves. And this is good news for you, because it's much better to deal with a hiring manager than it is to deal with a recruiter. Okay, Min says, hello, sir. I just dropped out MBA from USA and come back to home country. Now I'm applying overseas jobs in Singapore through online. How can I get more chances in getting jobs overseas? Oh, well, that's a very general question. Now, listen, I'm not like an immigration expert. And that's a huge part of the problem or the challenge in getting hired overseas. There's a lot of immigration related issues. work visas and all this kind of stuff. So I'm really, and I mean, besides, I don't think anybody will know all the details of when you're in any country in the world going to try and work in any other country in the world. You'd have to really specify. But all I can do is really speak to the qualifications and how you would do it. Just very briefly, that kind of stuff, what you want to do, it's like general advice, and that is that as much as possible, you want to talk to somebody in person. Now, if you can't do that, you at least want to talk to a real person on the phone. This is what you want to do. That's far more preferable than filling in forms and mailing them out to some faceless organization. Okay? As much as you can make the process personal, the more it'll work out for you. That's what I'll say about that. I'm sorry to hear you dropped out of an MBA. For what it's worth, I have a $100 MBA course if you just want to learn the material, right? To help you in life, to be successful in business and working in a business. So if that's any use to you, you could check that out. But I'm sorry to hear that. That sounds like a big disappointment. Now listen, I did a poll yesterday on this topic, okay, of where the good jobs are. Now the poll was, and I'm going to show it to you in a second, if I can pull it up. Yep. It was a question that went out to everyone, a multiple choice question that says, I got my last job through, and then you had to check, A, B, C, D, or E, what applied to you. Let's see if I can pull that up here. Okay, maybe I can make this bigger. Okay, so here we go. I got my last job through. Now, these are the results for the poll for yesterday, okay? So 16% of people said LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, or, presumably other types of social networking. 13%, so almost as many, said applying in person. 17% said a company website. 21% said a job aggregator website like Indeed. Hopefully everybody knows what a job aggregator is. That's where, like think of the website Indeed.com. The jobs that are posted on there are not posted by Indeed. They're not looking for someone to work at Indeed.com. They're posting jobs on behalf of other companies who are looking for employees. So what Indeed does is it crawls the web kind of and finds job postings and then lists them all on its site. On a single site, it lists jobs from all these other employers, right? So that's what an aggregator is, okay? I think monster.com, is another one. So 21% of people said that. And then the winner of these options was a personal referral, 33%, okay? Now, the statistics for this kind of thing, this was out of like 2,900 votes, okay? So this is the people that I guess see this, that crowd. Presumably they are familiar with my YouTube channel. So this crowd, this was their breakdown. Now, in the wider world, it's something like 70-30, okay? 30% of people approximately get their jobs by applying to a job posting, okay? So they don't have any personal connection to that employer. They simply see a job posting on a website, and then they apply with an application, and then they get hired. Okay, so that's about 30% of the people who get jobs. 70% of the people who get jobs that, do this, they don't go through that process. Instead, they get the job because they have some kind of personal connection to the company. Okay, so they know someone in the company, right? Now, if you're an introvert and you hear this, your heart probably sinks because you think, oh, crap, I don't have this giant connection of contacts of people that are all my best friends, and, I can just call them up and they'll just give me a job. That's not what it means, okay? Just so you know. What it means is that you've had some kind of interaction with that person. Okay, let me explain. They're not your best friend. They're not even your friend. They're maybe barely an acquaintance, okay? They hardly know you. but they know a little bit about you. They know that they've met you. They might know you from a work relationship. So for example, if you were a previous coworker of theirs, they worked with you for maybe 6 months or more, something like that. And this might have been 5 years ago. So you'll know that person and they'll know you. They remember your name. They remember who you are, but they don't really have any kind of affinity for you. You're not best friends. You're not buddy-buddy. But they do know that you were employed in a certain company at a certain time and you were a half-decent employee, right? They know that you weren't crazy. They know that you weren't a criminal. They know that you weren't a psychopath. They know that you weren't some kind of dishonest person that lied about everything to everyone. You know what I mean? They know that there's nothing majorly wrong with you. Okay. Now that actually counts for a lot because you're now one step above being a stranger. A stranger is someone that, you don't know who this person is. They could be a criminal. They could be absolutely crazy. They could have lied about every single thing on their job application, and they're an imposter. They might not have even given you their real name, right? The problem is when you hire someone that you have no connection with whatsoever, you have no idea what you're getting, right? And the reality is that there's not an easy way to tell. Despite background checks and other things, there really isn't an easy way to tell if this person is going to work out. Okay? So, yes, if you had an infinite amount of money and an infinite amount of time, of course you could tell that. But in terms of doing a job search in a cost-effective, practical way, there's no way to tell, right? This is the challenge. So for that reason, having a personal connection does count for something. Now, the good news is that you can get these on demand if you know what you're doing. Okay, that's what I'm here to tell you. I'm surprised that more people don't talk about this within the context of getting a job, because this is how most people get jobs, right? Now, the way that anybody can do this is what you do is you reach out to the hiring manager in advance, okay? So you don't have a real personal connection with anyone at the company, but you create one on demand, right? This is the way that anyone can do this. This is how introverts can master this. Okay, if you're an introvert and you don't have a lot of connections and stuff with people. And in this day and age, it's even more wonderful because you can do it through social networking. You can build up a virtual network through Facebook or LinkedIn. I mean, I much prefer LinkedIn, but you could do it through Facebook, I suppose, if you wanted to. But yeah, so you reach out to hiring managers. So this is where a lot of the jobs are. Now, the final statistic I want to leave you with, okay, on this topic, is that something like 20% of all jobs are posted. Okay, that means that all the jobs you see posted online, that are posted on a company website or on an aggregator like Indeed or LinkedIn, right? All those jobs, that's only 20% of the number of jobs that are actually out there. And the other 80% are not posted. Now, why aren't they posted? Well, number one, because they don't need to be posted because they are a good job that's in demand. You don't need to scour the earth for a candidate that would want to do the job and be able to do the job. They're a dime a dozen. Okay? So companies do not feel the need to post it. It doesn't make sense because all you'd have to do in some cases is just tell your employees, your direct reports, hey, I'm looking to hire another person for our department, right? And someone will usually say, hey, I've got a brother-in-law that might be perfect for this if you're interested in having them come down to interview. And the boss says, sure. I mean, number one, that's so much less work for me than having to post this job and, filter resumes from total strangers and then interview strangers who could be crazy. They could be criminals. They could have no integrity. They could be lying about everything. It's so much easier to get someone that my own trusted employee is recommending to me that I take a look at, right? They're not going to risk their job by recommending some crazy, inappropriate criminal person, right? And that counts for a lot. So it's not that you're giving them the job because of that, but you're giving them a chance. You're going to look at them first, right? So chances are that job will be filled before you even need to publish it far and wide. You just tell a couple of people, I've got this job. Do you know anyone who might be interested? And they will say yes. And then they will suggest someone, and chances are that person will work out. So that's the number one reason why those jobs are not posted, right? The good news is that you can put yourself forward for those by being proactive. If you contact the company, you contact the hiring manager and say, hey, just so you know, I have these qualifications, these skills. I know that your company does this type of work. I think you guys, do a fantastic job from what I've seen. If ever you're looking for someone who could work in this capacity, let me know, because I'd love to work for you guys. If you send out messages like that to people, a lot of them will get to hiring managers. They might not be hiring right now, but maybe they're hiring in a month. And when they get one of those jobs, instead of just talking to their direct reports or a couple other people, they think and they go, hey, someone contacted me recently that might be a fit for this. And you know why I like that? I like that because it signals that they're interested in this company specifically. And they have the professionalism and the awareness to reach out to me, right? That really signals a lot of good things about them. And I got a taste of their communication skills and their professionalism, and it passed. It was professional. It made a lot of sense, right? There were no red flags. So already, you're now a candidate for a hidden job, and you've already demonstrated a few things about you that show yourself in a good light. So anyway, that's I'll probably wind this down now. We'll go to questions soon, but this is really where the action is in terms of getting jobs, changing jobs, and moving up. This is how you do it. In fact, the vast majority of executive jobs, something like 99%, are not posted. They are on the hidden job market. They're done through word of mouth, and they're done with things like this, basically, this type of activity. It's very rare that you want, a divisional vice president of operations and you just post it publicly. Yes, you do get that occasionally, but the vast majority of those, they don't just hire strangers and start interviewing them. It's through having heard about you, or someone knows about you, or someone's worked with you, or someone's been impressed with who you are as a person already. So there you go. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, we are going to go over to questions. So if you see the chat box, you should see a chat box right next to my face somewhere. Get in the chat. And whatever challenge you're confronted with right now, whatever you're wondering about, let me know, and I'll see if I can help you. I'll do my best. We have Daham Ahmed, if I'm saying that right. Hey, I just joined. What is it? Yeah, this is a live stream. It's basically a Q&A. So if you got any questions about job interviews, resumes, careers, networking, all that kind of stuff, feel free to ask. And Dimitri is here. Dimitri says hi. Hi, Dimitri. Thank you for joining us. In the meantime, if you are lost, if you are overwhelmed by the whole job search thing, you don't know what to do, you're not really having a lot of luck so far, I do have a course that covers everything from beginning to end. It's called my Get Hired course. Check out the description box under the video to learn more about that and get a link to it. So yeah. So get in the chat and ask me some questions. In the meantime, coming back to Min about the USA thing, and applying for overseas jobs in Singapore. To increase your chances, the more you can have an interaction with people, that's usually the way to go. Okay, Mickey9 says, directly contact HR manager works both in small and big companies. Absolutely not. No, Mickey9. Here's the deal. You do not contact anyone from the HR organization. You contact the hiring manager. That's a different person. So let's say you wanted to work at a garage, okay? You wanted to fix cars. Let's hypothetically, okay? The general manager of the garage, the person who runs the garage, the boss, right? They're the hiring manager. They're the ones that create the job. They say, you know what? I need to hire another mechanic. I've decided I'm going to hire another mechanic. I've put some money aside. I've looked at the work schedules, and I've decided we need one more person. Okay? So they're the ones that create the job. They're the ones that know all about it. They're the ones that approve the allocation of budget to hire one person. Okay? They are a jumped up mechanic. They know all about being a mechanic, and they supervise the mechanics. Okay? So they are the hiring manager. If you get the job as the mechanic, you're going to be working for this person. They're going to be your boss. They're the hiring manager, right? That is something different from being an HR person. An HR person is not the hiring manager. They're usually lower down, okay? And they work in a specialized department, the HR department. And the HR department, their job is to deal with employees. So any kind of administration that deals with employees, that's what the HR department does. They don't deal with customers. They don't deal with the public. They deal with the company's employees. That's their job. Okay? Now, a lot of what people in companies, the way they organize this is they sort of they fully or partially farm out the job of hiring people to the HR department. In some companies, they leave it entirely up to the HR department. Even the decision to hire someone in the first place can come from the HR department. In a lot of larger organizations, that's what we see. They decide that this department needs another person. Now, they might consult with the hiring manager, the person that runs that department, but they handle the whole thing. They figure out what skills are needed. They write the job description. They interview the candidates. Like they post a job and promote it. They bring the candidates in, conduct all the interviews, make a recommendation. We think this is the person you should hire. And ultimately, in the end, the final decision is up to the hiring manager, okay, the boss of that department. Okay? But in other companies, they don't do that. A lot of times, the boss, the hiring manager, they want full control over who they hire. So they want to see the candidates. They want, their say in what the job posting has on it, right? What requirements you need and what you're going to be doing, your duties and all this, right? They want control over that. Because after all, whoever you hire, you're going to have to work with them. So they want control over that, right? So a lot of times you get the hiring manager doing all the interviews. Sometimes they'll do like a hybrid thing. They'll get the HR department to weed out the candidates in like a first round of interviews. So that can happen on the phone as a phone interview. They weed out the people that obviously are not appropriate. Or you do like a first round of actual face-to-face interviews with a recruiter. And the recruiter just looks for all those skills that were on the job posting to confirm that you have them, and then look at any obvious red flags why you would not be a candidate. If you're a really nasty person, if you don't know how to act appropriately, if it seems like you're really not interested in doing this kind of work, like those would be obvious red flags, right? So they can spot those and weed out the people that show those. But beyond that, the decisions then go to the hiring manager, the chief mechanic. They're going to be the best one to decide which of these mechanics I want to work in my garage, right? So when I talk about reaching out to hiring managers, you're going to be reaching out to not the HR department, not a recruiter, not anyone in that entire organization. You're going to be reaching out to the hiring manager. And the hiring manager is a term that just means some kind of manager in the area that you work. So if you're a marketing person, you're going to talk to the marketing manager. If you are an accountant, you're going to talk to the head of the accounting department, the accountant manager or controller or whatever their title is, right? That's what I mean by hiring manager. Not a recruiter, not anyone in the HR organization. And the reason you don't want to do that is because they're not going to be able to help you. They'll just simply refer you back to the official process, which is go to the website and fill out an application, right? Okay, Ida Barra is here, if I'm saying that right. I'm sure I'm not. I never say anyone's name right, so don't take offense. Hello to Ida. Kevin is here, says, I live in Regina. I have more than 20 years experience in software development. I've been searching for work since October of last year. I don't know what to do. My funds are drying up. Okay, here's what you do, Kevin, okay? Kind of in the vein of what I've just been talking about. When you apply for a job, okay, especially these days, if you apply online, you're going in with a lot of other applicants. There could be like 100 other applicants for the job, right? It's very hard to elevate yourself above the crowd when you're going in with 100 other people, okay? That's why they employ things like ATS software, like applicant tracking software, so they can sort of weed you out before you even really get considered by a human, right? That's the purpose of a lot of ATS software. So here's how you succeed at that game, okay? You could try the brute force method where you just apply to 1 billion jobs, and statistically the probability is that you will get interviewed for something and selected. But what's a lot better and more efficient is if you have 100 candidates, especially in software development, a lot of introverts go into software development. I'm not knocking introverts. I am an introvert. I'm a technically minded, detail-oriented introvert. Okay? So I feel for a lot of technically minded, detail-oriented introverts, and there's a lot of those that are developers or systems admin in IT. Okay? Now, there's a tremendous opportunity here, and that is that if there's 100 applicants, I would guess that maybe 95 of them simply submit their application online. They don't call, they don't show up in person, they don't do anything to go outside of that rigid sort of HR process for recruitment and selection to have any kind of personal connection. Okay? This is a tremendous opportunity for you. Okay? Because if you are one of the people that does, you can elevate yourself above the crowd. Okay? Now imagine you did what I was talking about 10 minutes ago, which was if you had sent out a message over LinkedIn or something to the hiring manager at this company, so the head of, software development or something, the software development manager, whatever the title is, developer manager, project manager, whatever they call themselves. And you sent them a note. You said, hello, my name is Kevin. I'm a fully qualified developer in, whatever type of programming you do. I have 20 years experience. I know my stuff. I can develop, whatever. I can write whatever you need. I'm very, very good and very efficient at it. If ever you're looking for a developer to join your team here in Regina, in your office here, I would love to work for you guys. I know you guys do some great work in this area. I think that's really exciting. If ever you're looking for someone, don't hesitate to give me a call. Thank you for your time. Right? Now imagine you sent out a message like that to all the software managers at all the companies in Regina. Okay? That's going to be at least a couple hundred people. Okay? Big companies, small companies. Some big companies, there'll be multiple people, right? There won't just be one manager that deals with developers. It'll be a bunch of people, right? Send it out to the CFO. Send it out to the CEO. Okay? The higher, the better. Because of all the applicants they get for developers, how many do you think are keen enough and proactive enough and personable enough to do this? Not many, right? And a lot of CEOs will say, hey, I don't know who this person is, but they've got the right attitude. And if what they say is true, they sound like a good addition to our team if we're looking for someone with those skills, right? Now, a lot of the time, when you send out these messages, the company isn't hiring right at this second, right? So either you don't get a response or you say, thank you for your message. It's really interesting. Unfortunately, we're not hiring right now. It's like, okay, fair enough, right? But just the laws of probability or chance, some people are hiring right now. So you send it out to a bunch of companies, you'll get a certain percentage that will respond, right? And someone will say, you know what? We might have something. Here, why don't you apply for this, right? Now, worst case scenario, they refer you to the standard HR process. They say, okay, well, go to the website, apply for the job, right? Okay. So it seems like a kiss off, right? Doesn't sound very encouraging. But what you can do is you can go back and say like, okay, following up to my message to that hiring manager, it's like, hello, sir, ma'am. I did what you said. I put in my application. Thank you for that. I have a question. And then ask them about something. Do you guys mainly use Python or C++, whatever, right? And now you've got a bit of a personal relationship going with not the recruiter, but the hiring manager, right? And that's enough to really elevate yourself above the crowd. They'd rather hire and deal with someone that they've already interacted with than a total stranger, right? Okay, so there's all kinds of advantages of doing it this way. So I've done videos on this. I want to get to some other questions, but I don't actually have it. I'm seeing if I can pull it up on my screen here. There's a video I have that talks about how to do this precisely with details. How professional people get jobs. So I will show you on the screen here. Here we go. Okay, let's see if I can do this. Okay, so here is my video here, how successful people get jobs. So if you do this, I show you on the screen, walking you through everything. This is how you can follow that process if it sounds like something you want to pursue. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense, Kevin. Chaos is here. Chaos says, I joined a little late, so sorry if this was discussed before. How do you write the email to access a hidden job? What should you include? How long, short should it be? Well, I've given you several examples just in the last 5 minutes or so. We're saying, hello, I'm here. First of all, I wouldn't use email. Okay, you can do it by email, but I wouldn't. Emails are very easy to ignore. I'd much rather do it over something like LinkedIn. Okay. It's a little more personal, like if you send a message over LinkedIn. And what I would basically say is, hello, I have these skills. I'm fully qualified, whatever you do. And I know that your company is doing some exciting work in this area. I think that's great. If ever you're looking for someone to join your team or to be able to, contribute this or have this result or fill this role, let me know because I'd love to work for you. That's all you have to say. And then obviously they would have to be able to contact you. So if you do it over a DM on LinkedIn or something like that, that's all you need to do. And the best way that I recommend is not using InMail, not using any kind of like your email, but connecting with them and then sending them a message. So it's like a 2-step process to do it, to really get the best results. But that's all you need to say. You don't have to write, in fact, it's a disadvantage to like write a 3-page essay. You don't want to do that. You just want to have a quick note. This is what this is who I am. This is what I can do for you. If ever you're looking, please let me know. Thank you. Your message really isn't any more complicated than that. And if it was, people wouldn't read it because they don't know who you are. Right? So that's really all you have to do. Just maybe 3 sentences. That's it. And the thing is that if you talk about yourself right up front, that can turn people off. So what's a better way to do it if you're sending it to someone that you have had no prior communication with and they don't know you, is I would immediately start talking about them. So if I were to write this, I would say something like, hello, I know that your company does exciting work in this area. You know, I'm a fully qualified this, I'm that. If ever you're looking for somebody, let me know. Like I'd put the thing about them first. So that makes them want to read the rest of it. Kevin says, I've had 2 interviews, but no offers. Well, keep going, Kevin. I mean, it's a numbers game. It's like the marketing funnel. You know, it's all about multiples. You know, of all the jobs that are out there, where's my hand here? Of all the jobs that are out there, you apply for these jobs. Of all those jobs, you get these interviews. Of all those interviews, you get these offers, right? So, I mean, it's just a matter of going down that. So you have to start with a lot of opportunities, a lot of leads up here to get one offer down there, right? And you should always have multiple, what's the word for it? Tactics or campaigns. Like in your job search campaign, you're trying to get a job. You're not just using one technique. You're not just applying for jobs online. You should also do other things. So do a little bit of networking, you know, apply for jobs online, do other things. Okay. If we come back to that, where was that poll? Because not everybody got to see this if you were just joining me. This is a poll I did yesterday on my YouTube channel. And if I can bring the thing up here in time, you'll see that there's different vectors, if you want to call it that, for how to get a job that people have employed here, right? So we talked about LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, you know, social networking for getting a job. Okay. We talked about like applying online, company websites, right? Or a job aggregator like Indeed, right? We talked about those. Okay, but look here, applying in person. Okay, 13% of the 2,900 people that filled out this poll said they got their last job through applying in person. That's something that is not often talked about. This is where the personal connection thing really shows you how valuable it is. Because are these people any more qualified than the people who applied online? No, of course not. Statistically, they're exactly the same. The only difference is that the company has met these people now, right? You've shown up. The company has to choose between many, many qualified applicants, right? This is the thing. Everybody thinks it's about being more qualified than somebody else. It's not. As long as you meet you're over the hurdle and they consider you qualified, right? That's all you have to do. The decision from that point on is not about how qualified you are. It's about what you're like as a person. This is the maddening thing for introverts, right? And I include myself in that. I'm an introvert. And I'm an introvert that tacked on social skills, public speaking skills, negotiation skills, interpersonal skills, conversational skills. I'm not a whiz at any of them, but I do them to get by. You know, these are people that the company has met them. So they already know that you're personable. They already know that you're professional. You didn't show up in sweatpants with like food stains down front of your shirt. If you're a guy, you're totally unshaven, right? You showered that day. You know, you didn't act inappropriately. You didn't make like inappropriate jokes or something when you met them, right? They've seen all this about you. So you have a considerable advantage over someone they haven't met yet, right? So that's why they'd rather hire the person they've actually met than a person they haven't met, right? So that's why applying in person like this is a real advantage. Now, if you're doing a job search and it's going nowhere, right? You've been applying for jobs and you haven't been getting callbacks. This can be the game changer for you. All you have to do is do exactly what you're doing now, except you show up in person. Now, obviously, it takes a lot more effort and trouble to do this, right? You're not going to do this for every job. But if there's a couple of, occasionally you stumble across a job that's like really desirable for you and it's local, right? Well, you could do this. Instead of mailing in an application over email or whatever, or over the website, deliver it in person. Now, I know this sounds nerve-wracking, but it's actually very simple. Let me lay it out for you. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just taking a bit of a detour before I continue with the questions here, but let me just say this, okay? If you're going to apply for a job and it's a really desirable job, okay, normally what you do is you'd fill out the application online, you'd submit it, okay? You're going to do that, but before you do that, if you can, try this. Go down physically to the company. Walk through the front doors of the company. You'll probably get to some kind of reception desk, okay? And they'll say, hello, can I help you? And you say, yes, thank you. I am here to speak to the head of this department, right? You don't know their name. Okay, so just, would I be able to speak with the head of the operations department? Would that be possible, right? Now, in a small company, it's like walking into a doctor's office. The person you want is probably right over there, right? Like they're just working in an office right there, 10 feet away from where you are, okay? So it's not like a huge ask, right? In a big organization, it's a little bit more formal, a little bit more regimented. They might not give out the person's name, but that's okay, because what you're there to do is you're there to drop off a resume. 90% chance the answer is going to be no. Can I talk to this person? I'm sorry, they're not available right now. You say, not a problem at all. Now, if I leave this with you, would you see that they get it? Is that possible? 90% of the time, they'll say, sure, not a problem. And I'd say, would I be able to ask, what is their name, that person, so I can follow up? 90% of the time, they'll tell you their name. You're like, okay, thank you very much. You have yourself a great day. That's all you're there to do. You're there to drop off the resume or the application. Then what you do is you go home and then you call that person. If you were able to find out their name, great. You go home, you call the company. If there's some kind of switchboard, if you know their name, you get put through to that person. And then chances are you're going to be leaving a message. Okay, they probably won't pick up. If they do, it's fine. You just say the same thing to them live. But if, usually they're going to just have their voicemail on. So what you do is you leave a message. You say, hi, my name is Bill, whatever your name is. I'm just calling to see if you received the application that I left at the front desk for you earlier today. I just want to see if you actually got that. My phone number is this. If you have any questions, thank you very much for your time. Something like that, right? I'm just following up to see if you received my application, that kind of thing, right? That's all you're doing. Now, what you've done here, okay, is you now have elevated yourself above the crowd, because of all the people that applied for the job, how many had the professionalism and the dedication and the initiative to do this? And furthermore, when they hear your voice message and they might ask the receptionist, what was this person like? The result will be positive. You leave a professional message, you sound very personable, you sound like someone they'd want to work with. And, when you went to the front desk, you were very polite, very professional, you were very personable, and that's the impression that was left with the receptionist. So these help you to elevate yourself above the sometimes hundreds of people that are applying online that aren't doing this. Now, if you were the hiring manager and you had to hire one person, who would you call back? Would you call back the person that's faceless, you don't know? Or would you hire the person who is signaled that they're dedicated, they're professional? You've already talked to them in a way, you've heard their voice, you've seen how they handle things. All things being equal, you're going to choose that person. So that's how you elevate yourself above the crowd. That's why this result here, like applying in person, that's why that's a thing. Not many people are talking about this. Okay, getting back to questions here. And remember, if you are interested in learning all of this from the beginning with templates, examples, I have them all in that course, the Get Hired course. You can look at the description under the video if you want to go deeper into that. Okay, where were we here? Mickey9 says, I understand the difference now. Thank you, Bill. Good. Yes. Very important. Understanding what the term hiring manager means. It's not an HR person. Okay? When I say talk to the hiring manager, I do not mean talk to an HR employee. Okay, that is not the hiring manager. That is the opposite of the hiring manager. Those are the people you want to not deal with. Especially if you're further along in your career and you're trying to climb the ladder and you're trying to go for a manager job or above, right? You do not want to talk to recruiters. You want to talk to people who actually know something and are decision makers. Those are hiring managers. Their title is something manager, right? Operations manager, chief financial officer, controller, the managers of different departments. Ida says, I finished my PhD last month. Well, congratulations, Ida. But you misspelled month. So hopefully that's just a typo. We'll just let that go. I'm a 50-year-old copy editor who works full-time, and I would like to reinvent myself. I don't know where to start to find something new. What is your advice? Well, Ida, listen, it depends on what you want to do. I mean, you got to figure that out before you can decide what to do. You have to figure out what your goal is before you can decide what to do about it, right? Listen, if you're just trying to get ideas, like that's maybe in the area of life advice, trying to figure out what it is that inspires you, what it is that you enjoy. For myself, I learned 10 years into my career that it doesn't really matter too much what I do. It was the people that I have to work with that determine if it's a good job or not. So I've done several things. I've worked across 5 industries. But what defines whether it's a good job or not is the people you had to work with and how they treated you, up to and including your boss, whoever that may be. Right? So, but if you're talking about like what actual work you do, like what industry or sector you work in and this kind of thing, or what type of work you do. Some people want to do work where they deal with people all the time. Other people want to get away as far away from that as they possibly can and would rather work by themselves in a room all day long with a computer, right? So knowing this about you is kind of the starting point. But LinkedIn is a fantastic tool. And I mean, my advice to people, which is geared towards people who aren't starting out in their careers, you're a little bit further advanced, is don't deal with recruiters, don't deal with the HR organization. Go right to the horse's mouth, right to the source, deal with managers. For example, if you want to be a doctor or you think you might want to be a doctor, what I'd recommend is go and set up some informational interviews with doctors around your city. You contact them, you say, hey, my name is Bill. I would love to get your expert opinion on, this industry, like the medical profession and where it's going. Would you possibly have 30 minutes to spare where I could just come and ask you some questions? If you name me a date, time, place of your choosing, I'll be there, right? And next thing you know, you've got several informational interviews lined up with medical doctors, maybe a couple of GPs, maybe a surgeon, maybe a administrator type, I don't know. And, you can ask them like, what does your job entail? And, what advice do you have for people coming into this business and where do you think the business is going? And you get to ask them all this stuff. And then you might get an idea of like, if that's kind of for you or not, right? So replace doctor with whatever you think you might be interested in. And that way you're getting it right from the source, right from the people who are in those jobs. And the added bonus is that you can look them up on LinkedIn. If you're contacting through LinkedIn, you can see essentially their resume. What qualifications do they have? So to be in that job, what qualifications would you need? Well, you've got some examples right in front of you. Ida says totally correct. Right on. Kevin says, thank you. I appreciate the advice. You're absolutely welcome, Kevin. Afra says, hello. Hello, Afra. And Kat says, hello. I had an interview with HM and trainer, okay, for a job March 12th. HM, I don't know what HM is. Her Majesty, His Majesty? I don't know. Went on vacation until April 2nd, said she'd follow up with me and that week, but haven't heard back. Should I follow up against? Should I F you again today? That's a good abbreviation. Right on. Should I assume you mean follow up, because I read F you to mean something else when I first said it. Okay, I don't know what HM is, but you had an interview, you went on vacation, said you'd follow up with me. Yeah, sure. Why wouldn't you follow up? Like, what harm is there in following up? Sure. Now, usually the way it works is that if they've selected you, they'll let you know, and they'll let you know pretty soon. If they're delaying and getting back to you, usually that means it's a no, okay? But that's not written in stone. The odds are is that it's a no, but, things happen. I got a job where, like, I documented this in a video on my channel a long time ago, where I did 9 interviews for a job. And the reason I did that is because I did like 5 or 6, and then the person ghosted me. I just heard nothing back. And I decided to call the company, and I followed up, and I found that they had left the company. But their boss, who was the CFO, I followed up with him. I called him and said, like, what's going on? Or is this still a thing, or are we done? And he said, no, I'm actually glad that you called, because, that person left. So, let's continue this process. Let's just see if we can wrap it up. So I did 1 interview with him, and then it worked out, and then they hired me. So, anything can happen. Everything happens some of the time, right? So there's no harm in doing it. I get that question a lot. Should I follow up? Well, what's the harm? I guess it's because you're nervous to follow up. People these days are very nervous to pick up a phone or do any kind of response. And I get it. It can be a bit nerve-wracking because the pressure's on, but just do it. Try and push yourself to just do it. If there's any doubt, follow up. Okay, and learn the professional way to follow up. Don't pester them. Don't annoy them. Don't whine about it. Just, I'm just following up to see if there was any movement or any update on this position. If there is, please let me know. If you need any more information from me, here's my contact information. Thank you very much. Have yourself a great day. Chaos says, thank you. You're absolutely welcome, Chaos. Cat, supposed to start backup plan B job Friday and would rather only start 1 job if possible, so I'm getting antsy. Okay, listen, Cat. You heard that expression, a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. If you've got a job like in hand, they've made you a written offer and you've accepted it, take it, okay? Don't do anything to jeopardize that, because at least that's real. That's what you have. Now, between you and me and the rest of the world that's watching, if you regard this other job as a more desirable job, but they haven't got back to you yet, push as much as you can for that job. And if they give it to you after you've started the second job, that's okay. You know what I mean? Look out for number 1, but don't jeopardize something you have for something that you may not have. You know what I'm saying? Get the thing that you have, play it safe, start that job, just assume that that's your job for the time being, but then behind the scenes, try and push for the other one to happen. Okay. And then if it does happen, you simply just, sorry, within 30 days, usually most employers within 30 days, it's not the end of the world to just sorry, this isn't working out. I'm going to go another direction. I hope you understand. And, it's no big deal, right? What's the worst case scenario? You get a better job. Usually that's the problem people look forward to. So yeah, just do it like that. But don't say no to a job that you've been offered because of the hope you might get something, okay? That hasn't materialized yet. Dimitri says, what do you know about the Canadian job market? It seems like many people are having trouble finding jobs online. I'm considering visiting a career fair. Well, it depends. I mean, are you just starting out? Are you just coming out of school? Or are you 50 years old and you're an industry veteran? What are we talking about? It's hard to generalize about the Canadian job market or the American job market. In America, it's both hopeless in some places and an absolute gold mine in others. It depends what we're talking about. And you could say that about any country or even a lot of sectors like industries. Okay, so you've got to narrow it down before we can talk intelligently about it. And the other thing is it doesn't matter because even in a declining industry, people are still hired. You know what I mean? So it doesn't matter what the trends are. All that tells you is how much work you have to do, right? And what the odds are. Things can still happen, right? People are always having trouble finding jobs online because jobs online, let me say this. Number one, applying for online jobs is probably the worst way of trying to get a job because the sheer quantity of applicants you get for those jobs is like a problem in itself. You have to elevate yourself over like hundreds of other people to get those jobs. Secondly, they're some of the crappiest jobs that are available because they have to be promoted in that way to find someone that's willing to do it. Because either the jobs are, they're minimum wage and they're so terrible that, people don't last in those jobs. That's why they keep having to post them. You might have seen those jobs that are posted and reposted over and over again. A lot of times that's what's going on, right? And the other thing about the posted job market is that as we've shown, and I mean, I've even proven that in a couple of days ago, or not really proven it, but you know what I mean? Gotten more evidence for it, for the fact that something like 80% of jobs are not even posted. Now, I asked this question. I got my last job through which vector, which method? Social media, applying in person, a company website, a job aggregator like Indeed, or a personal referral. Now, this is online, that is online, okay, and that is online, right? So you've got people doing those. But of the networking stuff, you've got applying in person, you've got a personal referral, and then there's a whole bunch of other things that we haven't even talked about, okay? Applying in person is the way to go. That's how you get the good jobs, and that's how you get employed when many, many other people are failing at the online jobs because they're all competing for the online jobs. Only 20% of the jobs are posted. So you've got 80% of people competing for 20% of the jobs. The other 80% of the jobs that are hidden, you've got very little competition for. So that's where you would want to look. The problem is, especially young people aren't aware of the hidden job market. They don't like that term. They think it's some kind of conspiracy. It isn't. So learn about that. I've got several videos. I've got a video called Hidden Job Market. You could try that for starters. And then that other video did I still have it up? No. I have another video called what the hell was it called? It was like how professional people get a job or how, yeah. Let's see if I can find it for you again. Let's go here. Okay. The company's expert. My keyboard is under my microphone. That's why I'm looking like this when I type. Company's expert. How professional people get jobs. I think that's what it was called. How successful people get jobs right here. So check out that video. So just type like how successful people get jobs, the company's expert, and you'll take you right to that video. And that's that gives you the details of how you can get started doing this. Okay. But you need to also learn how to have a conversation with somebody and learn how to talk to people. Just the basics. I mean, it really doesn't take a rocket scientist to learn this stuff. But you've got to want to learn. A lot of people don't want to learn, and that's the problem. So sorry for that non-answer, Dimitri, but it's such a general question. I can't really speak intelligently about it. You'd have to refine it. Ida says, thank you. You're welcome. Kat says, oh, hiring manager. Okay, gotcha. It'd be my second follow-up. Will do, thank you. Yes. Yes, okay. I understand the temptation to use abbreviations when you're talking to somebody, but in the context, I don't like it when people use abbreviations because they think that they're being clear and they're not. It depends what context you're talking about. Kali in the Valley, awesome, says, What are your thoughts on a career change? How do you let employers know that even though you don't have the experience in that particular industry, that you are extremely trainable? Very simple. Changing your career has to be done through networking, okay? Because basically what you're going to tell someone is you're going to say, look, I really think I could be great in this position, okay? I don't have any hard experience working directly in that industry, but I have this. These are all the constituent skills, as I understand it, to do this, right? And I'm looking for someone to give me a chance, right? And you're going to sell yourself on basically your interpersonal skills, right? When you show how dedicated you are and how you've thought this through and how you can speak to the requirements, a hiring manager will give you a chance. A recruiter will not. Okay? In order to understand why, you need to understand what a recruiter's job is. The way recruiters make their money is that they are given a list of requirements, and their job is to go out now and find candidates that meet all those requirements. Okay? That's their job. That's how they get paid, right? I've hired recruiters. I've hired HR firms to recruit for me in my organization. And this is how it works. Now, they don't write the job description. You write the job description. I'm the hiring manager. I'm the head developer or whatever I am, and I want to hire a developer to work on my team. So I write the job description. I know what I need. I need someone who knows how to program in this language. I know someone I feel that 2 years experience doing this particular thing is necessary, and I feel that this skill is required. So I write the job description. Then what I do is I give that to a recruiter, okay? It could be an internal recruiter, or it could be an external recruiter working for some independent HR company, okay? Their job is to go out and find me candidates that are available to work for me, they want to do the job, and they have all the things on my list that I gave them, okay? That's their job. The problem with changing careers is that if you go through a recruiter, let's say you want to be a teacher, okay? And I have some experience doing this. You want to be a teacher. Now, let's say you've got a PhD in architecture, and you've done research and you've written papers on architecture in a university, but you've never worked as a teacher. You want to teach high school, let's say. You're doing a career change. You're fed up with architecture, but you think you could be a really great teacher because you love teenagers and you want to be around them all the time. That raises some red flags, but let's say that's true. So the problem is if you apply for a teaching job and you have to talk to a recruiter, what's the first thing the recruiter is going to ask you? They're going to say, how many years experience do you have teaching or teaching high school, right? And you'll have to say, well, actually, I have never taught high school before, and I've never actually done any teaching before. They'll say, okay, then what makes you think you're qualified for this job? You're not qualified for this. So sorry, rejected, right? They won't even give you a chance because their job is to find someone who's qualified. And usually to be a teacher, one of the requirements is that you've been a teacher before, right? Now there's a way around that. I've been a teacher. I taught at the university, and I've never been a teacher before. And the way I got that job is you talk to the hiring manager. You say, look, okay, I've never done any teaching, but I have done this, okay? I've been supervising people for 20 years. I've done keynote speeches. I've done, this and that. I've trained people. I've, evangelized about safety culture in an organization, whatever, over 20 years. And, I really think I can do this. And I'm an expert of the subject material. So like if I'm teaching finance or I'm teaching, HR, I have a master's in finance and I have a, qualification in HR. So I know the material. I just haven't been a teacher, but and then when you do the interview, they can see that you have good communication skills. You're personable. You're, easy to deal with. Right? So in that case, the hiring manager who writes the job requirements says, you know what? I think I'm going to give you a chance. You seem to have the constituent skills, even though you don't have much teaching experience. I think you might be able to bring something to this role, right? A recruiter doesn't have the authority to do that, but a hiring manager does because they write and determine what the requirements are, right? So they can waive one of them in your case if they see other things there, like dedication, like a logical argument why you can do the job, and they agree with it, right? So that's why when you want to change careers, usually you do it through some type of networking. You have to, because you can't change careers using the criteria that recruiters put up. Usually you have to have experience to get a job. So if that's a deal breaker that you don't have it, sorry, it's a deal breaker. You could be Albert Einstein, they still wouldn't give you a job because, I'm sorry, it doesn't say any kind of teaching experience on your resume. So no dice. So that's why you talk to the hiring managers. That's why you have to go around the HR organization. Okay, Callie continues, says, in other words, how do you make employers look at your resume when you don't have the background experience? I'm in dentistry, but I would like to go into paralegal profession. Yeah, well, hopefully you got an answer to that. They're not actually looking at your resume. The resume is not what's determining whether they give you a chance. It's the meeting with you that determines whether they give you a chance. Okay? Because you're absolutely right. If you give them a resume and you send that to a lawyer who's trying to hire a paralegal, and they look at your resume and there's no paralegal experience, but there's a degree in dentistry, they'll conclude, well, you're not qualified, clearly, right? But if you meet them and say, like, you show up dressed like a paralegal, you look like you would fit in the office, you talk like a paralegal, you sound like a great person to deal with, you know about what a paralegal does and all the challenges they're going to have, all the things that they would need, like being organized and knowing how to file things and knowing how to be a receptionist. Like, I don't know what a paralegal does, getting documents signed. You know all about that. And you have done each of those before, right? And you can tell them about it. So you alleviate their concerns that, you'd have issues with these job duties, right? That's how you do it. So you can get those with informational interviews, or you just send out I don't know what you call it, but those messages saying, I'm here, I've got these skills, I'd love to work for you. Kali says, you cover a lot of large company interview advice, but I work for a small business where you don't deal with recruiters or human resources. Well, good. Yeah, you cut out a lot of that stuff. I mean, listen, I cover a lot of big business stuff because that's what the demand is from people that watch these kinds of videos. Anyone that's watched my live streams over time, you know that I love talking more about how managers and executives get jobs, and that has nothing to do with talking to recruiters and answering questions like, tell me about yourself. You know what I mean? It's completely different, right? The problem is when I talk about that stuff openly, I get two things. I get a lot of people that leave because they think it doesn't apply to them, or they think it's all bogus. And I get a lot of people that challenge it and they say, surely that can't be true. You must be lying. It must be all crap. That's not how people get jobs. They get jobs by filling in job applications and sending it to some recruiter who's 21 years old. This is their first job in their life, and they decide whether they hire you. It's like, okay, if that's what you think, that's definitely how some people get jobs in some areas. But if you think that's all that happens and that's all that's out there, unfortunately, you've got a lot to learn. And I hope that you do learn it, because once you realize how much stuff there is out there, and you step into this larger world, you see how many opportunities there actually are. And I like small businesses. I worked in big businesses. I worked for GE and GM and these big companies. And then I worked for small businesses that had 50 employees in it when I started. And hands down, I love small business. You can just get things done, and people generally, at least in the situations that I've seen, you treat them not like a number, you actually treat them like people, because you're kind of in it together to a greater degree. Callie says, by the way, thanks for your content. You're absolutely welcome, Callie. I'm glad you're interested, and hopefully you're getting something out of it. I'm going to wrap this up too. It's amazing how fast an hour and a half goes. I'm almost at an hour and a half here. MK Vine says, what do you do when there are limited amounts of job postings and they get quickly saturated with applicants? Well, what I've been talking about this entire time, just replay it. That's what you do. You go around this system, because the system you're describing, where you apply to a posted job on the internet with an online application of some kind and a resume, that's a tiny subset of how people get jobs. Now, if you don't believe me, because when people hear this for the first time, they don't believe me for whatever reason, do your own independent research. Go to Google and see, how many people get hired through, a cold job posting where you don't know anyone at the company versus how many people get hired through networking or other means, and you will be surprised, because most people don't get hired by applying to job postings. It's the default thing, the easiest, most obvious thing to do. So a lot of people think that that's all there is. It's not. And when you get further into your career, you will realize it. Think of how your boss got hired. Did they post a job publicly that you saw? And it said, like, we're looking for a manager of this, or their boss. How did they get hired? Is that what happened? Did you put in for it? Did everyone put in for it? No, they probably just got hired and you didn't even realize they were looking, right? That's because it's not done in the same way. So if you want to go for those jobs, you kind of have to learn this way of doing it. And it makes total sense, because if you're going to hire someone that's going to be in charge of this massive thing, you better get the right person. You can't just take a chance on someone. You got to get the right person. And you don't leave it up to just, seeing if they can ace a couple of job interviews. You need to know for sure that they're good. And the way you do that is by having heard of them and knowing of them and having worked with them and this kind of thing. So, it's having at least a connection to them. That's the beginning. So if you can create connections with people and then they turn into jobs, that's what you do. And the beautiful thing about this for introverts is that you don't have to do any of this in person. Okay. Kali in the Valley. Thank you. I really appreciate the advice. I got to basically put in Aaron Brockovich. Yeah, it won't require anything of that magnitude. It's basically just using a different method. That's all. But as I say, if you want to learn this, I can't teach it to you from beginning to end right now. It takes hours and hours. You got to learn these concepts and these principles and what's actually going on. And then you got to learn what to do and how to do it and why you're doing it that way. That's all in this course. Okay. If you're interested, check out the course. I do have some free videos where I show pieces of it, but it's a lot. Like knowing how to do a resume. Could you explain that in 5 minutes to someone who's never done a resume in their life? No, it would take a few hours, right? So this is kind of like the same thing. Okay, I'm an introvert, but I've done a lot of networking. I forced myself, and it actually is a lot simpler than people would think. A lot of things in life are simpler than people think. It's just that a lot of people, you don't attempt it because you have this preconceived notion that it's this horrible, bad thing that you'll never be good at. The reality is that it's not that bad thing at all. It's actually quite a bit different than what you think it is. It's a lot easier, and you're a lot better at it than you would think you would be. And so if you actually try it, when you realize this, you actually progress. Anyway. Mickey9, I always receive positive energy from your live streaming. Thank you, Bill. See you again soon. Yes, Mickey9, thank you for saying so. You are awesome. Everybody here is awesome. There are 28 people, I believe. It says 28. My screen is dusty, but I see 28. Thank you for being here. You guys are awesome. Hopefully you've gotten something out of this. I will try to do these every week at this time. I'm going to be doing one next week. It's not going to be about quite like this. It's going to be more about business and management, but it'll be a Q&A. So if you want to ask more sophisticated, higher end questions, I'll do that because I like talking about that stuff. And Dennis says, best advice to find hiring manager in the field you want. I heard this other day to bypass recruiter. Yes, Yes, you are taking your steps into a much bigger, better world, Dennis. Stop talking to recruiters and HR people. They are grunts. No offense to them. There's some that are really, really good. And especially there's some really good executive recruiters that I've interacted with. But that being said, there are a lot of bad ones. I mean, how many recruiters ghost you? How many recruiters say rude things, give you awkward interviews? There's a much better way. That's when you do the things I was talking about in this live stream. You talk to hiring managers. You get invited into a company to have a meeting with the hiring manager. It does not feel like a job interview. It feels like a referral. They've invited you in. You're not forcing yourself onto their turf. Okay? They don't treat you like cattle. It's a completely different vibe than when you go in for a job interview. It's like you're showing up to have a meeting with someone because they've asked you to, right? So already you feel a lot less awkward. And then they're happy to see you. They know who you are because they invited you in. You're meeting with that person. So you meet with them and you say, it's very positive. Hey, what's going on? And then you can ask them a whole bunch of things. They can talk to you about their job and their company and what they do and what they're looking for and all this kind of stuff. It feels completely different. It feels like a referral, right? That's the way to do this stuff. Anyway, hopefully you got something out of this. I'll be back next week with another episode of How to Get Hired. In the meantime, subscribe to my other channel, The Company's Expert 2. I'm almost at 5,000 subscribers. So if we get a couple more, we'll push it over that hurdle and that milestone. I have a couple of courses. I just released this one officially, Write Like a Professional. If you are using communication in written form for your job or for your career, which is pretty much almost everybody, learn how to do it right. You learn how to communicate like a pro, how to communicate like an executive, not just how to write, but what to say. It'll help you develop really good professional relationships, personal relationships. It'll allow things to go better for you in your career, promotional opportunities, et cetera, right? Check it out. I also have the $100 MBA. Okay, this is an unaccredited MBA, but you are learning exactly the same material in it that you would any other brick and mortar MBA. I have an MBA. And what you're getting here for $100, which is like so cheap, it's laughable, it's basically a self-study thing. So you're getting a reading list of textbooks. You can order these textbooks off Amazon for sometimes like $5, $10. And they're the same textbooks that you get in places like Harvard Business School that they use in their MBAs. So you're learning the same material. Okay, the only difference is that you're doing it on your own terms and on your own schedule, and you can go as deep or as shallow as you want, right? So if you just want to put your toe in the water and see what business is all about, you can do that. If you are thinking of taking a real life MBA, like an accredited MBA at a brick and mortar university that costs you $10,000 and up, this will help you kind of put your toe in the water, see what you're getting into, maybe give you a head start. I provide a lot of videos with it. I don't teach you all the material, but I guide you through it. I give you what I think are, the more important areas and the less important areas. And I also give you some insights from my career of how certain things can be applied. So if any of that sounds like something you're interested in, check it out. Link in the description. I also have videos that go into detail about how these courses work so you can see exactly how they work before you pull the trigger on it. And I have a promotional offer, which is always in place, and that is if you get any two of my courses, you get the third one for free. So if you want to do that, just contact me, send me an email, and assuming you've used the same email to register for two of the courses, you can get the third one free. So there you go. I will be back next week. And hopefully, if you have any questions, you can ask me then. Thank you very much for your attention. You guys are awesome. And I will see you in a few days. Take care.